Good morning, Rupesh and Utsav. Good morning, Rupesh. Okay. Utsav is saying, could you please explain the balance matrix once again? Sure. Utsav, can you tell me how your organization is structured? Let's take that example and see if we can understand better. If you can speak, I will suggest you to speak. Let me, I think I have to enable your mics.
Hello.
Yes. Very well.
Hello.
I think the noise was coming from.
Hello.
Yes, I'm able to hear you.
Hello. Can you hear me now? Yeah,
Yes, I
it's
can hear.
having yeah. Hello.
Rupesh, there are a lot of
Vivek, can you
noise
hear
coming
me?
from you. I can hear you.
Yeah, it's having vice president at the top with senior managers, and the consultant level.
Hmm. How it is
That is
structured? Like
our structure.
it is completely on project.
It's completely on project.
So suppose a person who is not working on projects, what it does? He or she does.
No, there is an, maybe he or she is on a bench.
Okay. Are there any people who are never on bench?
Yeah, there are people.
Who are those?
Because maybe a new project has come or a support work has come, so they are busy in every sort of work.
No, I'm saying anything other than project. Are they engaged anywhere?
No.
Okay. You are developing softwares, right?
Yeah.
Then UI will be one of the important thing.
Yeah.
Do you have a group for of UI experts?
See, actually, our product has been bifurcated into parts. Actually, some is dealing with the financial application, some is dealing with the planning or budgeting application, some is into costing application. So the team has been bifurcated as per the functions of the product.
I agree with you. So those are taking care of projects in that area. Is that right?
Yeah. Each and
Okay.
every team is bifurcated so that they can take up their area of work.
Okay. So I agree that there some will be in financials. So they whenever
Yeah,
the financial project comes,
yeah,
those people take care of it,
yeah.
right? But UI is required in all type of software, whatsoever domain is, right or wrong?
There is no UI kind of thing. It's a kind of a specialized product from Oracle. So
But there will be some human interaction, right?
there are
So,
some infrastructure guys, I can say.
no, I mean to say the software you are developing,
Hmm.
does it has any kind of human interaction, or it's a
Human
middleware?
interaction.
Somebody can operate this software.
Yeah, it can be it's operatable, but it can be customized as per the
I agree
requirements.
with you. If you deploy it, somebody going to use it.
Yeah,
So
but
that
whoever has
person who is going to
hmm,
the person who will use it,
hmm,
how
hmm,
he will use it. There are some menus.
yeah,
There's some screen which the person can see.
yeah.
It's a graphical interface,
No, it's kind of a web interface actually.
web interface. So somebody would have designed that interface.
Yeah,
Who was that?
it has been
I'm
developed
saying,
by Oracle actually. We are
okay, okay. It is developed in Oracle. Okay, so it's a default UI group actually. So you are basically taking your Oracle
yeah,
application and customizing it for the
yeah,
needs of the people,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Correct, correct. Yeah,
My
correct.
main purpose of asking you was, is there any common service which is given to projects in all the domain?
Common service. What do you mean by common service?
Means a person, a resource in your organization can be used by any of the project. I
You are
give you an
saying that
example.
people. Okay.
I mean to say you are using Oracle application, right? Or Oracle People Software. What is
Yeah.
that? Which one you're using?
This is a Oracle application. Yeah.
Oracle application. There is an expert of Oracle application
Hmm.
who knows A to Z about Oracle application. If you have some
Hmm.
problem with the Oracle application, you reach out to this person, right? He's a kind of consultant,
Yeah.
correct? Do you have a group of such people?
Yeah. There is group of people.
Or these people are there in the domain team separately? You use only your consultant, which is assigned to you, or which is part of your group,
No, we use specialized consultant which are part of group.
part of group. So basically, you are
Yeah.
100% projectized company
Yeah.
because there is no flavor of function. Therefore, it is you are finding it difficult. Now, let me tell you one thing. Suppose
Hmm.
these consultant, there are two consultant in your domain. There are two consultant in another domain. What are the various
Hmm.
domains in your company? You just explain. One is financial, others are
One is costing based, and other
costing.
one is
Okay.
planning or budgeting.
Okay.
Planning or
So suppose
budgeting.
costing, planning, and financial. right?
Mm.
Now
Mm.
all three have two consultants on Oracle application who provide all the
Yeah.
support in if the team faces any problem from the Oracle application technical problem.
Yeah.
Now you come out with another group, a different application of Oracle application. Okay, those people also need two
Mm.
people. Now you see that
Yeah.
these two people are not fully utilized in their group, and therefore because they possess the common knowledge, why not form a
Mm.
separate group of these six people? Anyone who needs support with respect to Oracle application, that person can reach out to this group, and they will allocate a person to that group, that project. You're getting my
So
point?
actually, currently you are saying that people who are able to multitask in
No,
any
I'm not talking
function.
multitask. I'm not talking multitask. I'm saying you take out these two people from all three group, six people, you
Okay.
form a separate group. These people are
Mm.
not part of any of the group. Even the fourth group, which is
Mm.
just has come into existence, can also use these people. A specialized group
Okay.
providing support only on Oracle applications if the team, any project team face any problem. If you form such a group, it will be
No.
called a function. It will be called a function.
Okay. Okay.
And your organization will become a strong matrix from projectize. So many software companies
Okay.
have a specialized group for user interface, for architect, because architect is some normally in every project used heavily in the beginning, and sometime
Mm.
in the end. During the project, he just
Mm.
need 10%, 20% to help out people, right? So they are shareable resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
So often for optimizing their use, often companies form separate group like architecture, group of architectures, group of UI interface, group of Oracle applications, group of Java people. So if any project need
Mm.
Java people, they will reach out to that Java group and say, "Okay, give me four people." So that Java
Mm.
group is a function, Oracle application is a function, user interface is a function. Your In every organization, admin is a function because anybody can use
Yeah.
admin.
Mm.
So no organization 100% projectize, but if I take out admin from the technical work, that these are the common people in all the organization, your organization is projectized. If you have these kind of function, that will become a strong matrix. If these
Okay.
groups become too strong, means a Java group is having 100 people, and your project, your financial domain is also having 100 people. They become equal, right, in strength.
Mm. Mm.
That will become a balanced matrix. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
when your financial team has 10 people only doing some project, and this Java
Mm.
group grows to 200 people, and your financial domain team has 20 people, you are actually become weak matrix. Your
Okay.
function is dominating now.
Mm.
And if you have only functions, there is no team like financial, like costing, like other group, then you are
Mm.
purely functional group. If any project come like financial, where a user interface person is required, a Oracle application person is required, a Java person is required, then you take then one person from any of these function. Suppose it's an Oracle application function, then one person from the Oracle application team will assume charge as a project manager, in parallel doing his job also, and take help from different Java people, from user interface people, and then create a project team, which is a shared team basically. None of the person are dedicated. You have a functional group. You become a functional organization.
Okay.
Getting my point?
Yeah, getting you.
So this is how the the difference between the projectize and the function.
Okay.
Therefore, like the companies like Infosys, Wipro, TCS, IBM, they are highly the balance matrix organization, almost balanced. Though they are on the stronger matrix side, but they have so strong function now that moving towards balance or almost balance.
Okay.
They have group for every specialization, and there are group which are focused on telecom market segment, market verticals. They only take
Yeah.
projects. They only take
Yeah.
projects. They don't have resources with them. They assign a project manager. The team come from different functions depending upon what is the need of the project. This is called balance matrix organization.
Okay.
Maybe they also having some common resources, but they are in less numbers. They are mainly dependent on these functions to provide resources and technology. Now these telecom, financial, uh, I say manufacturing, auto sector, these are domains. They may not be doing anything on the technology wise. If a new technology in the software has come, these domain will not do, but some specialized group will do. Like you have to develop some expertise in Flash. So some user
Yeah.
interface or some like Java oriented or Adobe related people, they may develop competency in that, and they continue developing competency
Yeah.
in that. So those such an hybrid organization is a balanced matrix organization.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Anybody has
Okay.
any other question? No? Okay. Okay, so let's get started for today. Yes, there is a lot of noise coming from your mic. When you enable your unmute your mic, lot of noise comes. Right. When you keep yourself muted, I think there is some problem with the mic. It's only noise comes, your voice doesn't come. So today I will take up two things. I will take you through the overview of PMP exam first, and then we will move to the integration part. Okay, these are the main, and depending upon if we complete this faster or later, we can move to next next subject or next chapter or not. So first I will give you an overview of PMP exam. Okay, so anytime you're thinking that it's difficult to understand or you're missing something, please stop me and ask the question. Okay, so in this module, I will give you an exam overview, some tips for preparing for PMP exam, what is called PMIism, and once you get your certification, how to continue renewing your certification by earning your required PDUs. Okay, many of those things you may already be knowing, some information may be new. So I believe you all are graduate, so only first this section applicable to you. You need 3 years of project management experience, basically 4,500 hours of experience in project management. It does not mean you must be a project manager. You would have spent your time in doing project management tasks. Okay, more we go into this course, you will come to know what actually the project management tasks are all about. We discussed yesterday as an overview type of thing, but this understanding will become better and better as we go through this course. Okay, plus you need 35 hours of formal project management training, which this course will fulfill. Your experience should be in all 5 process groups, that is initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, control, and closure. No minimum is defined, so even 1 hour in spending in one process group is sufficient. Your experience in this 5 process group can be through the various projects. Means you need not necessarily be having experience in all 5 process group in one project. Okay, in some project you participated in initiation and planning process. In other project you participated in execution, monitoring, control, and closure. So these projects put together, you have experience in all the knowledge areas. So normally initiation phase and closure phase are very small in all the projects, and therefore normally people have little less experience in these 2 areas. Okay, so if any project you have experience in any of this area, that can be counted here. Okay, experience must be accrued within last 8 years. You may have experience before 8 years also. PMI will only go up to 8 years. Okay, the exam is 4 hours. There are 200 multiple choice questions. Only one answer is correct. And there are 25 questions which are pre-release. Now this information is only for the academic purpose. You can't use this information anyway. Out of 200 questions, 25 questions, you make them right or wrong, they will not be counted. But you don't know which questions are these 25 questions. So you attempt them as any other questions. Before scoring for you, they will take out these 25 questions irrespective of they were right or wrong. And then remaining 175, they see if you have corrected, if you have correct answer for 106 questions, you will get pass. If you have less than these many questions correct, you may fail. And as soon as you submit your exam, it's an online exam, your result will be on the screen and in the form of pass and fail. Okay, the PMI never tells you that how much you scored. They will give you a scoring sheet, but that will be telling that where you are strong, which area is weak. You'll never get a score. Okay, so PMI, you are either PMI certified, PMP certified, or you are not PMP certified. So 95% scoring 95% in PMP certified and scoring 61% with PMI certification, there is no difference between these two people. Okay, so now how the questions which are coming in the exam, how they are distributed. 13% questions will come from initiation, 24% questions will come from planning, 30% questions will come from execution, 25% come from monitoring and control, and 8% will come from closing. Okay, there was a special percentage was allocated for professional and social responsibility earlier, which is withdrawn, and these questions will also part of this distribution. The exam fee is $555 for non-member. For members, it is $405 US dollar. The initial membership fee, that is the first time membership fee, is come out to be total 148 US dollar. So total will become $553, which is $2 less than non-members. The advantage of become member and then apply for PMP exam is that you, in the same amount, you get 1 year membership from PMI free. Okay, so therefore second option is always preferred. Moreover, there is a e-learn on PMI website. When you become member, that e-learn is accessible to you, and there are books available which you can read online. So that advantage comes to you for preparing for PMP exam. So I will say you become member of PMI, apply for PMP exam, take a month later a date for PMP exam, prepare offline, and also read the stuff which is available online on the PMI website, which you have access after you become member. Now, what is the training requirements for PMP exam? There are the training requirements and there is an experience requirement. So 2 requirements are there. I will take up the training requirement first. It is a smaller one. You have to earn 35 hours of training from one of the following. So criteria which is set here is this is provided in the PMP handbook. Now you can take training from PMI component like chapters and specific interest groups. PMI registered education provider, normally termed as REP. From your company, a company sponsor or company organize a training program for you. From training companies or consultants, project management consultants. From the distance learning companies, including end of the course assessment. Okay, and from universities, colleges, which imparting education in management and project management. Okay, Now here I will just clarify the doubts many people have. There is a perception in the market that only REP can do such kind of course. So that's a completely misconception. You can take course from any of them. Many people do their MBA, they also have project management as a subject in MBA, and that can be treated against this 35 hours. Now, another misconception in the market is that this training should be on PMBOK. No, there is no such requirement. No contents are recommended by PMI for training. It should be a project management training. The PMI framework is there, 5 process group, 10 knowledge areas. This training must be within that scope. If this training is outside of this scope, this will not be counted. But if this training is addressing any of this part of this scope, that is scope, time, cost, risk, procurement, quality, etc., then that training can be considered against to fulfill this requirement of 35 hours. Okay, the trainings provided by employer can be counted if they are on the project management, that is within the scope of the PMI framework. Okay, you can also do, you can have if one go 35 hours of training. You can have one day training in accumulating over a period of time. You can have half day training, 2 days training, and accumulate your hours. If any training you have done in last 8 years, I think it is last 8 years, not very sure, that can be counted to accumulate your 35 hours of training. Okay, so this not necessary that you must have this kind of training which we are right now doing. The advantage of this kind of training which we are doing, that it will help you to prepare for PMP exam. Other trainings on project management may not help you to prepare for it. That is the additional advantage of this. Otherwise, as such, you don't need a training like which should be on PMBOK. But exam is completely based on PMBOK. The knowledge which is documented in PMBOK and referenced in PMBOK. Now, how you will going to count experience? That will be counted through your various projects you have done. And when we count, we do not count the overlapping projects double. Okay, so if a project which is happening from January to April, and another project which is happening from February to June, and you are part of both the projects, so this will be an overlapping time, will count only once, because they count the calendar time for the experience, not how many projects you have worked on. So your experience will count like this. If another project come here and you are part of it, that is again be no additional hours for you, because that is already covered by these two projects. Okay, if you have any question anytime, please type it in the chat box or just speak out or raise hand. Now this could be most laborious work in submitting your PMP exam application, and therefore I would normally suggest that you please document your experience in an Excel sheet, and when you go online you copy paste the information. All the fields required there you can see there on the screen. I have prepared an Excel sheet. I will provide you this Excel sheet. You can document project by project using this Excel sheet all the information which you need to fill online. However, it is not necessary. PMI has provided intermediate saving of the application You can go directly start filling at the online, and when you see you have spent a lot of time and you cannot fill, or some information cannot be filled right now, you will fill it later, you can save it, come again and fill it and then submit it. I think you have 3 months to do so. This is a complete process of certification. Application submission, you have 90 days to complete the application. As I said, you can start filling the application today and complete it within 90 days. Okay, once you submit, the application will go for review, and normally within 5 days or earlier than 5 days you get the answer. Your application is either approved or it will go through audit process. Okay, if it goes through audit process, it is nowhere written, but it is understood that about 10% of the application randomly go through audit process. Okay, if it goes through audit process, it is your application selected for audit process, PMI will send you several forms to provide evidence for everything you have submitted in the form, the training, the experience. Now, to prove the experience, you need to identify some person, preferably your manager, who can say that yes, what you have written in the application is right. If you are unable to find your manager, you find some other person who was part of the project and can stand and say that sign on the details you have submitted to the PMI. Okay, so if you have 10 projects, you may find 10 such people. Now, once your application is submitted, approved, you can give the exam within 1 year. You can take exam up to 3 times. That is, if you fail first time, you can reattempt, but within 1 year. Okay, so, but I will always suggest that do not look for 1 year or how many attempts you have to make. You must pass in the first attempt. I normally suggest after completing this workshop, target to take up the exam within a month. You have to, your effort will be least in this process. If you delay it, you have to put more and more effort to get the exam or prepare for the exam. Now, once you give the exam, you pass the exam, you become certified, your certification cycle starts, because this certificate is valid only up to 3 years. Within 3 years, you need to earn 60 PDUs. We call professional development units. They can be earned by doing several project management related activities. We'll come to it later. But once you accumulate 60 PDUs, PMI will send you a form for renewal. Pay the fee and renew. If you are able to accumulate 60 PDUs within 3 years, your certification will be suspended, and that will remain in suspension for 1 year. During this time, if you accumulate 60 PDUs, your certification will be reinstated, otherwise it will expire. So as I explained you that if you get selected for audit, then your university degree, because that's all the criteria which are laid down in the for submitting the application, we need to provide the proof for them. Okay, so before I go for tips to prepare and passing the exam, let me know if you have any questions so far. No questions? Great. Now, remember a few things which will help you to prepare for the exam effectively. Remember that exam is based on PMBOK. The matter which is there documented in PMBOK and also referenced. So some parts are referenced only, they're not explained fully. It's advisable you understand those things as well. Reading some stuff outside of PMBOK. Currently, 5th edition is going on. The exam will be done on the PMBOK 5th edition. Our training program is also based on 5th edition of PMBOK. Now, I tell you that only real life experience is not sufficient. Knowing the PMBOK, PMI methodology, PMI ideology is important, because PMI ideology or PMI way of working may not be exactly as you have the experience. Okay, they might have conflicted multiple times because best practices are not always implemented. So PMIs, the PMBOK is a collection of best practices, while in the real life, not every time you are implementing best practices. So there could be some conflict. Whenever there is a conflict, if you are going to give exam, PMI ideology or PMI way of working, or I will say PMIism, will supersede your experience. When you are applying something in your project, I say probably your experience will supersede the PMIism. So stay focused what you are doing and go as per that. What make PMI exam a little difficult or challenging for the people to pass? It is not like other certification exam. Most of the questions are situational. Like there is another certification, Prince 2. 3 days training you do, 4th day you can go and give the exam. But if you do so for PMI, I think the chances of failures are very, very high. We normally recommend 1 month of study before you go for exam, considering you will be able to spend 2 hours a day. Okay, why? Because the most of the questions are situationals, and the options which are provided, they are very near to each other, and most of the time the people have said that they find multiple questions right for the answer. So it is normally difficult to choose the right one. So understanding is very important, that what is the concept, so that you can reach to the right, you select the right options. Plus, only understanding may not help with respect to exam. Practicing some sample questions is also equally important. You may need to memorize some stuff like input, output, tools and techniques and some formulas. But my opinion is that if you have done sufficient study, if you have practiced some sample questions, you may not need to do that. I think the formulas are very simple which are used. So if you have done some kind of practice or some kind of study, those formulas are so simple that you can memorize them automatically. Most of the input, output, tools and techniques are logical, but many input, output and tools and techniques may not be logical, or they are not logical. Those you need to remember, but even if you miss to remember, you will be missing only few questions. So if you need to spend a lot of time to do this, I will say avoid that. If your memory is sharp, you can quickly memorize them. I say spend some time and try to swallow them. Answer all the questions because there is no penalty for wrong answer. Many times questions become very wordy. A lot of text is there. But probably in such cases, all the stuff which is provided may not be useful. I have observed most of the time it is the last few sentence or last sentence which is critical. But do not assume that and only read the last question. Read the complete questions very carefully. Okay, but you may be answering the question which is presented to you in the last sentence. Most of the time, not always. Now, as we saw one of the question yesterday, that some question will be universally true, but they may not be the answer for the question. Yesterday we had one question, and the option was, one of the option was universally true, but that was not the answer of the question. So beware of such things. Questions are normally specific, and they expect a specific answer. Okay, so normally generic answers are not the right answers. Now these things only required when you are unsure about the answer. If you are sure about the answer, you don't need to think about all these things. You need to think about these things only when you are not very sure about the exam and you have a little doubt. So how to clear that doubt? These are some of the tips which will help you to zero down on one of the option. That normally global answers are not answers of the question, because the answers are normally specific. Questions are normally specific, and therefore answer should be specific. So global, universally true, these answers probably not be the right answers. They may be, depending upon the questions. Always answer from the PMI perspective. I say remember PMIism, because this is the exam on PMI ideology. Please remember that and answer from that perspective, even if your real life experience is different than that. Okay, as I said, the last sentence could be important. You will find most, best, first. That could be critical for answering the question. So there may be three things which may be right in the presented scenario, but first will be only one, and that you need to select, and that is what you need to polish your skills on, and that your understanding should be clear. You should have practiced such kind of questions. Both the things come together will help you to zero down on one of the option which probably be right. Now look at what is PMIism, what I should keep in mind when I'm giving the answers. Normally a project is start with a charter. Okay, there is a physical charter should be available. In reality, there are only few projects that start with charter, at least the smaller project. The project managers assume to have all the soft and hard skill. In practice, it may not be true. The project manager is authorized by a charter and have all the authority to take any action in the interest of project. May not be true in the real life. Project manager takes an active approach to the job and do not wait until the risk materializes. Okay, that is true in books and as well as in practice. And what is written in PMBOK is not a bookish knowledge. Actually, the PMBOK is a collection of best practices, not any kind of theory which is given to anyone. So whatever PMBOK talks about, somewhere in the word is already practiced. It may not be a common practice. Okay, so project managers should take active approach, look for what can go wrong or what is the right, and take proactive actions. Lesson learned from previous projects and historical database are available. In many of the organizations, the practices are not so good. They may not be, but consider they are. PMI does not approve construction of extra feature. This is termed as gold plating. So whatever there is defined in the scope, the project team only deliver that much and deliver everything defined in the scope. Any extra feature going beyond the scope is a gold plating. If you think that feature is really required, you propose to the customer, get the acceptance from the customer, and include that in the scope and then deliver. Okay, if you have extra time, don't spend it developing an extra feature which is not in the scope, but spend time in improving the quality of what is already produced as the part of the scope. Work breakdown structure is a wonderful tool, which is true because most of the project planning is based on the work breakdown structure. Roles and responsibility matrices are defined all the projects. You may not be defining, but it is always good to define it because this can prevent project from failure. In practice, if your project is delaying, your first option is to ask your people to do overtime. As per PMI, this is the last resort. Okay, so your practice is very opposite to what PMI think, and in fact that is the right thing also. It should be considered, overtime should be considered as a last resort. That's a mull practice that we take this as a first option. As a performance criteria is determined in advance, an EVM is employed to measure the performance. So that is a good idea, and it should always be done, even not done, that performance criteria should be defined. Many projects do not use EVM, but when you are in the exam, consider that EVM is employed. All changes go through change management, and impact on scope, schedule, cost, quality, and risk are informed to all stakeholders. So change management should be closely followed. All the changes which are coming should be recognized as change. Scope, time, schedule, cost, quality, risk or impacts are assessed, given to the change control board, and we should implement change only after change control board's approval. So we also form a change control board before we start the project. Project managers obtain formal acceptance to deliver. It is right, it should be done. All stakeholders need to be identified. That's true. In real life, it is a little difficult. You may find it difficult to some remote stakeholders. Those could be important actually for your projects. Lesson learned are documented during the closure. That's right. I would say lesson learned are not documented but compiled during the course. They should be documented throughout the project. Project managers evaluate effectiveness of corrective actions. That is also right. You should continue whatever corrective measures you do. Please measure the effectiveness of that. This is not an exhaustive list for PMIism. It is an indicative list giving you ideas that what is PMIism, and take care of this because exam is based on PMIism, not your experience. Any questions so far? Great. I believe everything is being understood, because then there is no question, either everything is understood or nothing is understood. So I think the first is the case here. Okay, with the God grace and with your efforts and with our support, you have got a PMP certifications, let's say assume. So now the new responsibilities come to you to maintain it. You need not to give exam again, but you need to continuously remain involved in project management to gain these 60 PDUs to continue with your certification. Certification is valid only for 3 years from the date you get it. Okay, from that date to 3 years you need to earn 60 PDUs. How you can achieve, how you can earn these 60 PDUs? If you are doing project management work in your organization, you automatically get 5 PDUs just by discharging your normal duty in project management. This is called category F. So there are 6 categories. This is the last category. So you get 15 PDUs in 3 years without doing any extra effort. So basically all the efforts from your side is to earn 45 PDUs. Are you feeling relaxed? Okay, so life become a little easier. That's why the last category I have put it first. Okay, now you can attend some project management education programs. They can be conducted by your organization. They can be conducted by some consultant. They can be conducted by any training organization. They can be conducted by REPs. They can be conducted by PMI chapters. They can be conducted by any of the 6 criteria I stated in the beginning for 35 hours of training. For PMI chapters, components, and REP, there is a category A. For all others, there is a category B. The reason for category A and B is that PMI chapters and REPs can pre-enroll their courses with PMI because they have a login and ID provided to them. But it does not make any difference. If you have the PDUs are unlike that. Every hour of investment in PM project management education will make you to earn 1 PDU, irrespective of who is the provider. Either you attend a PMI chapter meeting, knowledge sharing meeting, or REP's course, or some other training company's course, or your organization course, or you do some activities within your organization related to the project management, you can earn. In some cases category A, in some cases category B. Okay. We also do, earlier we were doing a very regular webinars. It becomes a little irregular for some time. We are working again to make them regular and do these webinars, free webinars on a regular basis. So I think in some time you will listen from us about these free webinars once again. And when you attend this, they are normally 1.5 hours. And if you attend, you can get 1.5 PDUs. Okay. Now we have covered category A, B, and F. There is a category C. You will feel further relaxed probably. You need not to do anything. You need not to go anywhere. You need not to pay any money for anything. Do some self-study. Read a book. Watch a webinar. Watch a pre-recorded some videos on project management. You can learn your own with any kind of resources available in the library, in the internet, or anywhere else. You can earn 1 PDUs for 1 hour of investment in such activity. The only thing which I think missed to mention here, maximum 30 PDUs can be earned. Okay, you cannot earn more than 30 PDUs under this category. But 30 PDUs are also a good amount, almost 50%, right? 50%. Now, what you need to do in this, you must document your learning. You must document your learning so that you can produce the evidence if your claim come under audit. So if EMI asks for some evidence, you have the evidence. For that purpose, I have created a self-directed learning log. Under that, whenever you do a self-study, you log that thing under your log so that whenever PMI asks, you provide the evidence. For example, suppose you have watched a pre-recorded webinar. Now, how do you remember? You document what you learn, what was the context, which knowledge area it was addressing, and if you have a URL, secure that URL. Right? All you can do in self-directed learning log. Though it is easy to use this category, but I'm telling you that this is the most underused category. Most of the people, because of fearing of authenticity, that who will prove this, all this, they do not use it. Therefore, I created this self-directed learning log so that people can document and safely claim PDUs against this, because this is easiest. You can do it, totally depend on you only, and you need not to spend money for that. Now, another category is the volunteer service. I think it is category D or E, I'm not sure, we will check that. You can give a volunteer service in the project management area, not necessarily to PMI, but if you give it to PMI, PMI will give you certificate anyway. You can volunteer for PMI chapters, PMI, or you can volunteer within your organization, create a group for project management activities. Even that can be done. The only thing is that whatever action you do under this volunteer service, you should not be paid. Only then it is volunteer service, otherwise it is not. If you are paid, it will go to your normal duties and you earn 5 PDUs anyway. Okay, so you can do some activities. I do a lot of activities. I write blogs for PMI. I chair the committee for translating PMBOK 5th edition from English to Hindi. I participated in the 4th edition also in this activity. So, and I keep looking for further opportunities and keep applying for that, and if I selected, I do my do my best to provide the services, and I keep earning PDUs on that. That is a different thing. I earn much more than required PDUs. So many of the PDUs I never claim. So I encourage you also, because it helps to build your network with the people you can never get in touch with, and you never know what kind of like useful thing they can bring to you. So a good network means you are a resourceful person. Yeah, so that was a category E. This is category D, that you can share your knowledge. You can conduct a webinar, become a speaker on the webinar. You can become a speaker of a classroom session. You can be like many PMI chapters organize like monthly meetings. You can go and present something there. You can be part of any I would say a group of panel group, a panel on which you can be one of the person. You can write blogs, articles in magazines. All these things can be considered as knowledge sharing, and you can earn PDUs not only for delivering but also for preparing. The best part. So suppose you presenting a 1 hour session to some audience of about say 20-25 people. So these 20-25 people will earn 1 PDUs. You will also earn that 1 PDU because you have delivered it, but you have spent time for preparation also. Suppose you spend 2 hours for preparation. So you can claim that 2 PDUs as well, extra, which attendees may not be able to claim. So this is what I wanted to cover to explain you about everything so that you are very clear about PMP exam. You can freely prepare for it and give the exam without any fear, with full confidence. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so no question. So let me ask you one thing. Many of you, I think 2 or 3 people showed the interest in giving the PMP exam. Do you think this presentation give you little more information than you were having earlier? Did it increase your education about this or knowledge about it? Yes, okay. Can you give me 1 or 2 things which were new in this? One or two things which you can state that, okay, this was something you are never knowing about it, and it's good to know about here. Eligibility criteria, tips on questions. Okay, great. Anybody else? Tips for questions. So, okay, so you like that actually. This will help you to prepare for and focus on the right thing. You know, more than your effort, your focus is important. If the focus is right, your efforts will pay you. If focus is not right, your efforts will go waste. So preparing the right thing only help. Okay, so what I do, we will switch for project integration management, and between that, I give you 5 minutes break. Okay, so it is 8:15. I will start in 8:20. Will that be fine?